Good morning. This is Introduction to Algebra for Friday, March the 20th. We're just continuing our lesson 98 in your book. Let's look at our practice equation of what we talked about yesterday. If 1/5 x equals 3/10, then what is the value of 15x plus 2? One equation can be solved for constant. One cannot at this point. Take the one that you can. 1/5 x equals 3/10. And let's solve that. We're going to use the reciprocal to get rid of our 1/5. And we know whatever we do on the left, we must do on the right. This is going to cancel for us, leaving us only the x. Over here, I'm going to say 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. So 3 times 1 is 3. 2 times 1 is 2. All we did was take the equation right out of our problem, bring it down, and solve it. Now, this is not our final answer because our question is, if this is true, then what does this equal? So let's go over here and write down 15x plus 2. If you'll remember yesterday, I told you doing this is similar to working with a formula. You write the formula, you substitute the formula, you solve the formula. Today, and just like yesterday, we're going to write our equation. Now let's substitute the equation. If 15 over 1, because it's a whole number, is going to be multiplied by x, which is 3 over 2 plus 2. Now when I look over here at this equation, I cannot reduce anything, so I have 45 over 2 plus 2. I need to change to 45 over 2 to a mixed number. When I do that, I can see that 4 divided by 2 is 2, 5 divided by 2 is 2 with 1 left, and I still have to add. So now I have 22 and a half plus the 2. My final answer is 24 and 1/2. Now let's look through the steps again. I have an equation. I said, if this is true, then what's the value of this one? Solve that if this is true. Solve that equation. That's what we did here. We solved our equation. Then we take what's the value of this equation and write it up here. Substitute with our x and solve. Now we know exactly what its value is. Let's look at another problem, another type of problem that we have been doing, and let's review it. What if I have minus or negative 2 1/3 x plus 2/3 equals 1 1/4, 1 4/6. I got ahead of myself there. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that 2/3, okay? It says to add it, so we know that we are going to subtract. So let's subtract 2/3 from each side. Now on my first side, that's not a problem. But on my second side, I cannot subtract 2/3 from 4/6. I have to have a common denominator. So 6 times 1 is 6 plus 4 is 10. So I have 10/6. And I'm going to subtract, as I change this to a 6. 3 times 2 is 6 and 2 times 2 is 4. So I say 10/6 minus 4/6. My answer is 6/6. On the other side of my equation, all I have left is my negative 2 1/3 x, which I'm going to change to a to an improper fraction. So I'm going to say 2 times 3 plus 1, and I have 7/3. Of course, remember, it's negative. So now that I have a negative 7/3 equals 6 over 6, and I have my x there, I need to get rid of my negative 7/3. In order to do that, I'm going to try to move this so you can see a little better. I'm sorry. There we go. So we're going to get rid of this by using the reciprocal. So we're going to say negative 3/7 times negative 7 over 3x equals 6 over 6 times negative 3/7. This is all going to cancel, leaving me only the x. Then we look on this side, and really, with our 6 over 6, this is really just a 1, right? So, you know what? Let's just go back and let's just make that a 1 over 1, because it's the same thing, okay? And we're just going to have a negative 3/7. Okay, so Mrs. Turner, how did you change 6/6 to 1/1? Remember, anytime you have a numerator and denominator that is the same, they equal 1. Okay, that was just to save us a little process. Let's look at this problem. We have, make sure Mrs. Turner's written the whole problem down. We have 3.5 over 2/3 equals 1/2 over x. The first thing we're going to do is change all of these fractions to improper fractions, okay? So 3 times 2 plus 1 is 7 over 2. 2 times 3 plus 1 is 7 over 2. And that's going to equal 1/2 over x. Now, the next thing we need to do is cross multiply to get our equation. I'm going to write my equation up here so you can see it. We're going to take 7.5, 7 over 2 times x. So we have 7 over 2x equals 7 and 1/2, 7/2 times 1 and 1/2, okay? Now, when I do that, I can see that I can't reduce anything, so I have 7 over 2x equals 7 over 4. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of. I want to get rid of some things. So let's get rid of this 7 over 2. So we're going to say 2 over 7 times 7 over 2x equals 7 over 4 times 2 over 7. Of course, our 2's cancel and our 7's cancel, leaving us only the x. If you look on the other side of our equation, we can say, oh, 2 divided by 2 is 1, 4 divided by 2 is 2. And both of our 7's become 1. So x equals 1/2. X equals 1/2. I think Mrs. Turner made a mistake. You know what I did, guys? I changed my number here. I changed from 1/3 to 1/2 inadvertently. Okay, I did not mean to do that. So if it had been a 2 all the way through, since we carried the 2, we'll leave it like that for the day. I apologize. All right? Now, we've talked about 3 different kinds of equations, and you're going to have all 3 of these in your work today in your problem set. Now, we're going to turn in your book to page 275. We're going to do everybody's favorite problems. We're going to talk about the volume of structures. And I say that teasingly because I know some of you, this is not your favorite. But guys, it's just following a formula, okay? Let's make sure that we know what the formula is, and then we're going to be all set. I've drawn on the board similar to the structure in your book, okay? Now, it tells us in our book to express our volume of this in cubic centimeters, and that our height is 12 centimeters. So the first thing we have to know, we're looking for volume. How do you find volume? Well, volume equals the area of our base times height. That's what it is. So all we need to do now is, how do I find the area of my base? Look at your diagram. In your book, you can see that this diagram can be cut into 2 simple shapes, okay? So first, I'm going to say my area is going to be the area of my rectangle plus the area of my triangle. And again, we're going to multiply that by the height. So Mrs. Turner, where did you get those 2 shapes? If you look up here, if I had taken a knife and I had cut right across here, I'd have a rectangle on the bottom and a triangle on the top. Now, I don't want to just jump and start putting numbers in. I want to think through, how do I find those areas? Well, the volume then of a rectangle is simply length times width, plus the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2, because again, we're looking for volume. When we're all done, we're going to multiply by the height. Now, let's go back and, oh wait, we have a formula just like in our equation. We write a formula, now we substitute our formula, okay? So first, thinking about this rectangle along the bottom, what are my measurements? Well, my volume would be, the length would be 30, the width is 10. Now, I have to look at this portion, my triangle. I need to say, what is the base, the height of my triangle? Well, if you look at the triangle would go all the way from corner to corner, so it's going to be 30. So we have 30. Now I have to know what the height of it is. The entire diagram is 22 centimeters. However, my triangle only goes from the top of the rectangle to the point. So how am I going to solve that? I'm going to say to myself, 22 minus the 10 that belongs to the rectangle. So my height is 12. I'm going to divide that by 2 in just a little bit and multiply by my height. Okay? Now, 30 times 10 is 300. Then I'm going to say 30 times 12, which is going to be 360, but then I have to divide that by 2, so it's going to be 180. And again, this is still inside my brackets. And then I'm going to multiply by my height. Add this together. This is my total area, 480. Now, I am ready to multiply by my height. If you go back to your book, you will see that the height was 12 centimeters. So what do I need to do? I need to multiply 480 times 12. My answer is 5,760. Now, this is volume. Since it's volume, my answer is not going to be square, it's going to be cubic. You say, well, why, Mrs. Turner? Well, remember, this was my area, so this was square centimeters. And 12 is my height, that is also centimeters. I multiplied my numbers, I also have to multiply my label. And that's how I got 5,760 cubic centimeters. Now, today, I want you, for your homework for class today, I'm going to have you do your written quizzes that I gave you, do number 79 and 80, front and back, 79 and 80. Then I want you to look at problem set 98. We did most of it yesterday. We're going to finish it up today. I want you to begin with number 14. Number 14, I want you to do 14 through 30. So you're going to take your written quiz, front and back, 79 and 80. You're going to do problem set 98, 14 through 30, and then you're going to take your online quiz.